Hey everybody, Hoosier Jedi here with another review for you. This time I'm talking about episode 22 of season 1 of Gotham, called All Happy Families Are Alike. And this is our season 1 finale, and this is one that lived up to the hype. We've been hearing for a long time that this episode was going to be seriously, as some of the actors put it, bananas, and boy, they were not kidding. The title of this episode is actually a nod to the opening line of Anna Karenina, I think is how you say it, a famous Russian novel by Tolstoy, which finishes with, and every unhappy family is unhappy in its own way, if I remember correctly. But it's been a long time since I had to read any Russian literature, so you'll have to forgive me if I don't quite get that exactly right. Anyway, before we go on, if you're one of my regular viewers, you might notice that I have a different background going on. Yeah, I basically got some new furniture yesterday, so I was finally able to complete my den, which, as you can probably tell by the array of geeky goodness behind me, is really decked out to be my sort of little nerd haven, as I like to think of it. So, I'm very happy about that. This is actually going to be the first video I record here in my new little recording place. Big improvement over my living room, which basically didn't have a central light source because it's I don't know, this building was built in the 80s. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. This is going to be where I'm recording my reviews from now on, and I am super excited about it. So let's just kind of get right into things. And wow, this was a seriously crazy episode. So let's just kind of talk about the more self-contained aspects of the episode, and then we'll talk into what's going on with the big stuff. You know, the conclusion of the mob war, I would say. So over at Stately Wayne Manor, Bruce is searching for whatever it is that his dad was keeping, and it eventually dawns on him, well, hey, Lucius Fox said that he was a Stoic, so he hunts up this book by Marcus Aurelius, which incidentally was, as I saw, was a fancy version of Meditations, and this is actually my personal copy, which show you. I have read and well, highlighted some notes. And Marcus Aurelius was indeed a Stoic. He was a follower of that philosophy, and of course, at one point, the emperor of ancient Rome. And these were kind of basically his sort of personal notes to himself, but they ended up being published in a book, and it's considered really kind of one of the hallmarks of the Stoic philosophy. And just so that you kind of understand, though, when we say Stoics, when we talk about like ancient Stoics, they're very different when people use the word Stoic today. Today, if people say someone is Stoic, you know, as an adjective rather than a noun, it generally means, you know, there's somebody who's very rigid and doesn't show emotion. Not to sort of beat you over the head with too much ancient philosophy, but the ancient Stoics were very much not like that at all. They were totally cool with emotion, so long as you basically you controlled your emotions, you didn't let your emotions control you, is kind of what they were about. Like, the classical Stoics were more like, you know, accept that there are some things in life over which you have no control over. You know, don't spend a lot of your time getting upset that you can't 100% control what other people do. You know, be glad for what it is you have, enjoy life, you know, things like this. And it's really interesting that Thomas Wayne was a Stoic, and you know, Batman is so often described as sort of a Stoic character. But if you really understand what it means to be a Stoic or to follow their philosophy, you realize Batman would actually be a really crap Stoic, because Batman is miserable most of the time, and he's constantly doing things that piss off his friends for really questionable reasons. I mean, there are reasons why I look at some of the old stories about Batman where he's really on this, and I just basically call him Bat Asshole. You know, where he'll lie to people like Dick Grayson and Tim Drake, for really, really questionable reasons. And, he'll go out there and sort of mock Superman to his face as some sort of naive idealist, which, I mean, I really cannot stand that interpretation of Batman. I really do hate it. Yeah, Batman's probably a somewhat cynical guy, and yeah, he's kind of paranoid, but I've never really pictured Batman as the kind of guy who goes out and acts like an ass just because he can act like an ass. But, that's just my personal interpretation. But anyway, then this all, of course, leads them to finding the little magic button, which leads them to what will obviously be the Batcave. And that's a really great note to go out on the season on. Now, the stuff going on with Barbara and Leslie. Now, I do like that they sort of have Leslie mention, like, basically say to Barbara, like, okay, Barbara, you need to go and get some therapy because, wow, you almost certainly have loads of PTSD. And Barbara's like, I want you to be my counselor. Leslie's like, well, I mean, I have a little bit of training as a counselor, but... And Leslie's like, and Barbara's all like, no, 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 you're the only person I could possibly trust with this. And this moves on to this really weird, awkward, and just creepy and as hell scene where it just sort of builds and builds and builds, and we all realize, like, wait, is Barbara really gonna... And then she snaps and tries to kill Leslie. And I gotta say, man, I love this, man. I love this. I kind of been hoping that Barbara would just go nuts and become a bad guy. Now, the producers have said right from very early on, they're going to be respectful of the mythology, but they're not going to be afraid to take the occasional change with things. Like Barbara Keene going nuts. Now, Barbara has always been seen by a lot of people as basically kind of being an amalgamation of Batgirl's mom with a few elements of Batwoman thrown in, namely the being a society lady who had a thing going on with Renee Montoya. But as I believe I've said before, apart from that, Barbara and Batwoman really don't have a lot in common. I guess maybe Montoya, just if they decide to introduce a proper Batwoman sometime here on the show, well, maybe not Batwoman, but the character that would become her, they might just sort of say, like, yeah, Montoya goes for those girly girl society types. Hey, why not, right? And I don't think that Barbara... Like, I saw some people like complaining, like, oh yeah, of course it's the bisexual character who goes evil, and come on, really? You know what? I've ranted about stuff like this way more, like dozens of times in my reviews over there. So you know what? This time, I'm just gonna pass because I don't feel like fighting that battle right now. I've been having a really nice day, and I don't feel like getting myself worked up. So let's see. I do appreciate the fact that when Jim burst in there and Leslie said, Barbara tried to kill me, he's like, huh? Or like, you're lying. Like, no, he's like, oh, yeah, okay, I can totally believe that Barbara would try and kill you. It's like, okay, I totally trust Leslie. So, yeah, it's really going to be interesting to see. It's finally interesting to see what's going to happen to Barbara next. I mean, seriously, I'm more interested in what happens to her now than when she was freaking kidnapped by the ogre. I'm kind of hoping she gets tossed in Arkham, because that would be pretty awesome. Because we really never got, like, the whole promise of Arkham Asylum was just not delivered on this season. And that sucked. Okay, so Mob War. Yeah, here it's pretty bananas. And, what's really great is that at the end of the day, as you said, the Penguin is the last man standing. He went from being Fish Mooney's toady to, as he said, being the king of Gotham. And, Fish killed Moroni, Falcone's out of there, and Penguin killed Mooney himself. As I said in several of my reviews, penguins eat fish. And you know what was really funny about that is that after I went on Tumblr and such and was checking the social media after this episode, I saw more than a few people going like, oh my god, I just got it! Penguins eat fish! Oh, really? You don't say. Well, gee. Excuse me. Okay, so let's talk about one of the other big changes they made to the mythology besides what happened to Barbara, and that's the death of Moroni. Now, remember, in the comics, Moroni is supposed to be the guy that throws the acid in Harvey Dent's face, turning him into Two-Face. He's actually supposed to be active when Bruce Wayne first becomes Batman. And here, this is another one of those things that they've changed, and I don't really think this is a huge deal. I think, okay, some other mobster or criminal throws acid in Harvey Dent's face, and okay, there's some other mob boss who's still around when Bruce becomes Batman. I mean, big deal. I mean, yeah, it's a shame to lose such a good actor as David Zayas, but c'est la vie. And you got to give the man credit. He did a great job with what was often very mediocre material to work with. And I definitely did love that scene between him and Fish at the warehouse where he's like, he just can't let it go. All he has to do is treat Fish with some respect and everything's going to be cool. But he just can't. I mean, it's proof that Falcone was right. Moroni is too much of a hothead to handle running Gotham. I mean, here he is. He just has to piss off somebody who was willing to be his ally. And there's that whole thing of like making Fish say, "I'm number two," and then constantly with the sexist comments. I mean, you can tell that Moroni's one of those guys. Like, if he finds out that you have a nickname or something like that you don't like, he will go and call you that at every opportunity just to piss you off because he can. I mean, this is one of those classic signs of just the overgrown bully. And then Fish Mooney shoots him in the frickin' face, and it was awesome. So, yeah, cool there. Now, as for Fish herself, I was looking at Jada Pinkett Smith this episode. I was thinking, like, you know what? If they did that story from the X-Men comics where Storm went out and, like, came back with this crazy-ass mohawk and this punk gear, if they were to do that story today, I think this is what she would come back looking like. Because, of course, they did that story back in the 1980s, and fashion was different then. But yeah, there was definitely more of a little bit of that in my mind when I was looking at Fish's new look, which I guess Selena really dug because she kind of did her own take on it. And when basically, like, I guess it was Gordon asked her, like, "Hey, why the hell did you join Fish Mooney's gang?" She said, like, "Because she's cool as hell." I'm just like, oh man. On the other hand, she's like 13. This is totally the kind of crap that 13-year-olds do. And then Fish apparently has taken this real shine to her and like even kind of like rubs her cheek against Selena's face at one point, just kind of cooing about how awesome she thinks she is. And it's kind of like the way cats are when they sort of want to show you that they care. They rub their face against you. Of course, and then, Gordon tries to sort of play up like, "Hey, Selena, help me out here." And she's like, "Oh, so I should totally throw away this sweet gig that I have just because I kind of sort of know you?" And Gordon's like, of course, Selena is nobody's fool. And, once Penguin starts waving around the machine gun, she gets the hell out of there. But again, this shows Selena going a little bit further down that darker road. She joins a mob gang, and yeah, she doesn't super owe Gordon anything, but she knows he's a decent guy and spent a whole bunch of time basically kind of holding up at, well, not exactly his place, but Barbara's place. But yeah, she did sort of throw somebody who had done her a favor under the bus. So yeah, you have to imagine that once the dust settles from this, Gordon is not going to be terribly kindly disposed to Selena next time the two of them cross paths. Now let's see. Oh yeah, I forgot to talk about Riddler. And yeah, here in this episode, we basically see poor Eddie pretty much completely lose it. And as over the top as that scene was, it really did, I think, do a good job of showing him descend really into just proper madness. And this kind of like, well, okay, he's stomping off to apparently go do something about Miss Kringle. What is he going to do? and that never really gets properly resolved. That was one thing that did bother me about this episode. Let's see. Butch. Yeah, let's talk about Butch really briefly. I was honestly surprised that he survived to the end of this episode. I was positive Butch was going to get killed in the mob war. But he survives. Not after. After though, he shoots both Penguin and Fish, and then he starts yammering on about how he was in love with Fish, and I take that to mean literally. It wasn't just loyalty. I think he genuinely loved her, which is one of the reasons he was so loyal to her. Why he was willing to murder his childhood friend for her. I guess it'll be interesting to see how Penguin deals with that. Especially now with Fish dead. Now, Jada Pinkett Smith has said that she's not coming back as a regular next season. I suppose it's possible she might pop up for a flashback or something like that. But yeah, I think they're probably just going to let Fish Mooney be dead, at least until maybe they decide maybe they'll get Jada to change her mind and bring her back if there's a season 3 for another round with Penguin, which would be pretty cool. But in any case, I'm content that she went out on a high note. Now, Penguin himself, again, what a journey he's had. He's gone from just basically sort of Fish Mooney's, errand boy to the king of Gotham. Now, of course, the question is, can he hold on to this? Now, remember, in the Gotham underworld, Penguin is known as basically errand boy for Fish Mooney, member of the Moroni's crew, and then somebody who worked for Falcone. He's never really been portrayed as much of a leader. And also, Penguin's gotten where he is by basically sowing chaos and stabbing everybody in the back. Well, now he's on the other end of that. He's on top. He needs order. He needs people to be loyal to him. And he doesn't really seem to know how to do that. He doesn't know how to run the ship that way, at least from my interpretation of the character. So Oswald is really going to have to shift gears, and I think what was his relationship with Gordon going to be like? I mean, he still seems to have this really bizarre idea that he and Gordon are in some way friends. That friendship, quote unquote, is a lot more strained now, but he still sort of seems to think it's there for some reason. So if things start getting bad for him, he tries to lean on Jim, and Jim won't play ball. Well, you have to wonder, what's Penguin going to do then? Answer, probably something nasty. Nothing really huge to say about Falcone. It's just sort of odd that Jim was so willing to sort of let a guy who was a known mob boss, who had in fact kidnapped and threatened to kidnapped his fiancée, and even flat out said, hey, if you try and arrest me, you and Bullock aren't leaving this building alive. And, not to mention all those other crimes he's committed over the decade. We're just like, whatever, man, later. But that scene where Falcone gives him the knife, that was cool. That was well done. And I was a little disappointed Jim didn't press him a little bit more. It's like, hey, why exactly were you and my dad buds? I mean, he was a prosecutor and you're a mob boss. But, I suppose that might be something they're saving for the future. It's not like they can't maybe have the fellow that plays Falcone, naturally I can't remember his name, come back as a guest, or hell, just have Jim pick up the phone and call the guy. And, yeah, I think that covers everything. So, Gotham as a season, I saw somebody who put it really well, they said that this season has had moments where it's been really brilliant, but there's just been a lot of drudgery and bad timing and just dumb shit done with the characters. I mean, the show has the potential to be really fantastic, and it definitely has gotten better as it's gone along, but this one feels like one where the people behind the scenes had a pretty steep learning curve. Now, hopefully they're going to take the time between seasons to sort of really sit down, figure out, okay, what worked, what didn't, what did the audience respond to well, what didn't they like, and have season 2 of Gotham roll out as a much more fine-tuned machine. Which is certainly what I sincerely hope happens. Now, with that said, I do have a little bit of an announcement to make in regards to my reviews of this episode. A while back, I sat down and looked at all the shows for the upcoming TV season, 2014, 2015, 2016 TV season that I was looking to do reviews of, and I came up with like 10. Now, not all of these shows are going to air at the same time. Some of them are like season 2 of Agent Carter, Legends of Tomorrow, and stuff like that are going to air during the break in January. But nonetheless, it was a pretty huge roster. It was like 10 shows, and basically, when I started this channel, I promised myself that I wasn't going to keep doing this if it started to feel like a chore. And out of all the shows that I reviewed, the Gotham ones are the ones that tend to feel the most like a chore. So what I'm going to do is video reviews of Gotham are going to stop. I'm instead going to shift that over to the list of shows that I live tweet. So when Gotham comes back in season 2, you can join me on Twitter for my live tweets of the East Coast broadcast. And this is something that I also do with Elementary and the Librarians. And it's quite a lot of fun. So I hope you guys will join me for those. So with that said, guys, I'm going to call it here. As always, please comment, rate, and subscribe. And of course, you can follow me on Twitter at Hoosier Jedi. So until next time, take care and have a good one.